All right. Welcome to Association Chat, which is your online discussion for the association community, where we warm ourselves by the virtual fire, welcoming topics and thought leaders of the day to join up in this online home for the association community. I'm the host of Association Chat, Kiki L'Italienne. And before we get started, I want to say Happy New Year. Happy New Year. I think we're all really excited to be here in 2021. And I also want to say thank you. Thank you to all of my Patreon patrons. Thank you for supporting Association Chat, because as you know, this is truly a labor of love and something that for over 11 years now, I've been putting a lot of time and effort and a lot of sweat and blood and tears. Well, not so much blood and tears, but maybe a few tears. I don't know. But you help make it possible. So thank you for that. Look, I want to welcome our guest today. I am so thankful, and I can't even tell you how excited I am to kick off this year talking with Kristin Sherry. Now, Kristin is a mom of four. She is the creator of YouMap Career Profile, and she's the author of several Amazon bestselling books for adults. There's Your Map, Your Team Loves Mondays. And we're going to get into all of the other exciting things that Kristin's been up to lately as we get into the discussion. But I really want you to think right now. Think about where you are. Maybe you've set some resolutions for yourself. You've made some goals for the year. Maybe you've just been excited that you made it through 2020 in one piece, and you're looking at the way that we're moving forward, and you're thinking, what's the best next step for me? A lot of people are in a place of transition right now in all sorts of ways, because this has been a wild, crazy time. So Kristin, thank you for joining us so that we can explore some of these thoughts and a little bit about how your work can help people with that for today's episode.
Thank you, Kiki. It's really nice to be here with you, and I'm excited to help your listeners however I can.
Me too. So I guess, I talked a little bit about New Year's resolutions to start. Did you have any? I mean, are you a New Year's resolutions person, or are you a one word theme for the year person? What's your story?
So I do a theme every year. So in 2018, my theme was passive income. I wanted to create passive income so I could write full time. And for example, Anne, I love Anne. Yeah. Like come up from Anne Neville. This year, my word is focus. So I always have an intention. So 2018 was to learn to receive, because I've always been someone who's a giver, and I would always try and put my credit card down first when going to lunch with someone, and I would never let people pay for me, and it was really uncomfortable for me to receive. And someone had said to me that when you don't allow people to receive, you're robbing them of the blessing of being a giver. If nobody receives, who has the blessing of being a giver? And I realized that it was like a prideful thing, that I didn't want to feel indebted to anyone. And so now I can just take gifts and say, thank you. I don't even say you shouldn't have done that. It's just very easy to say, thank you so much. This was so kind. And I received a lot of gifts in 2020, just through the mail from people from LinkedIn and colleagues. And I thought, oh boy, this would have been a really uncomfortable year if I hadn't practiced.
That's so wild.
So this year is focus, because now I am a very focused person. So there's a nuance to what I'm focusing on. I've always been very focused on writing books and helping people through social media channels and creating products to help people discover who they are, professional development. But where I have not been focused is on my life holistically. So everything else sort of went down the tube. So I'm trying to be present. So when I talk about focus, I'm talking about being present where I am and not thinking about work when I'm at the park with my kids. So I don't take my cell phone. I started in December, but I don't take my cell phone when I take my kids places now, to the park, for example.
Yeah, I think it's so difficult to have that kind of presence and to remember, it's really exercising that not multitasking, not doing a million things just because you can. It can become such a habit that you forget what it is to just be in the moment. What is it like to fully experience being present with your child? What is it like to fully experience just eating dinner and not having, a million other things like, let me try to do this, let me try to check my email, let me and I think, I don't know about you, but I think what we just have been through and what we're still going through, this great reset, that people are talking about, people having to take the time, decide how they're spending their time. I think it brings these things up and makes them more apparent when day in, day out, you're realizing, wow, I could just spend time with my child and not be on my phone, right?
Yeah.
That would be a big win.
Are you familiar with Nir Eyal? He's the New York Times bestselling author of
Yes.
Indistractable.
Actually, I had him on, and he actually came to Washington, D.C. and spoke to the book club that we have. So, yeah.
He was the one that really got me on this path. He wrote a beautiful testimonial for my book that's releasing next month. And in reading what he said, I was just like, I thought I need to really dig deeper into his work. So I had seen a few things, and I'm connected to him on LinkedIn, but I really started to so I got his book, and I was watching some of his talks, and he told a story in one of those videos about an exercise he was doing with his daughter, and that a friend of his did with, I think, his daughter as well. And it was, if you could have a superpower, what would it be? And his friend's daughter said, I wish that I could talk to animals so that I would have someone to talk to, because her parents were always on their cell phones. That wasn't Nir's daughter that said that, it was a friend. And he's told that story publicly, so I'm not telling any tales out of school. But that really hit me, because I thought, would my kids say that about me?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's been my reset.
It's been something where I think that a lot of us have just kind of, even if we thought that we were I thought that I was trying to be more mindful and trying to be, more present. And it's just, I realized that it wasn't true, or if it was true, I wasn't trying hard enough,
Yeah,
wasn't succeeding.
we're not fooling the people in our lives.
Right. Right. So talk to me a little bit about you, because YouMap, I'm a big fan, and actually I will go ahead and spoiler alert to anyone who isn't familiar with what happens in the Association Chat Book Club, but a lot of people who follow Association Chat and are definitely members of the book club are big fans of self-assessments, of personality profiles, Enneagram, Myers-Briggs, PI, I mean, you name it, DISC profiles, everything. And so when I saw things about YouMap, I thought, oh my gosh, tell me about it. What do I need to know? How can I better understand myself? So where did YouMap come from? How did you arrive at YouMap?
So it came from essentially DIYing my own life to be fulfilled. I was really profoundly unhappy. I, on paper, had a very successful career. I was leading learning and development at a Fortune 12. And, so you've got that 6-figure salary that everybody talks about, which means nothing when you're not happy, by the way. And so on paper, I had sort of reached what I was looking to reach in my life. And there can be this lie where you have this discontent and you think, wow, I'm really ungrateful. How can I be ungrateful? But there is productive discontent, right? So when you're just being discontent, complaining, that's not really productive. But productive discontent is when you take time to reflect and say, what's going well? What could be different or better in my life? What's preventing some of those improvements? And what's one thing I really need to change? And how can I help? And what help do I need? So when you start to ask yourself those reflective questions, that's really productive discontent. Well, I was in this position, and I would cry on the drive to and from work because I just felt that I was completely unfulfilled. I didn't know why my work made a difference or mattered. I'm spending all this time away from my family with this commute both ways. And my daughter had just been born, which was child 3 out of 4. And I had to get up in the morning, and I'm trying to get ready, and she pooped right before it was time to walk out the door, and I'm like falling apart. And then I got home just in time for her to go to bed. And I thought, okay, one day of that was enough. And so I started to look at what would it take for me to be fulfilled. And I worked with a mentor, and I started doing a lot of reflection and some assessment work. And I started to realize why I was unhappy. And for me, it was a values violation. So I used my strengths at work. I did a lot of skills that I enjoyed. It suited my personality. That wasn't an issue. But what I didn't know is what was most important to me and how those things were being violated, which is why the tears. You usually don't cry when you don't use your strengths at work. Usually when you're crying or starting to feel an illness or anxiety, that's often, I mean, barring they're making you work 100 hours a week, that would make anyone probably cry. But when you're having anxiety, that dread when you wake up and what day is it? Do I have to go there today? There's usually something deep going on there that we're not addressing. And so I started to dig in. What does fulfillment look like for me? And fulfillment looked for me like having meaningful connections with the people I worked with. Well, we worked in silos on that team. It looked like having autonomy to make decisions in my work, but I was somewhat micromanaged, not as much as some of the other team members were, but it was still present. Like, you can't email senior leaders without copying me kind of stuff. It looked like making a difference in people's lives. And I didn't see how the work I was doing actually made a difference in someone's life. Like, their life was better because of my work. And because those things weren't happening, I realized I felt this deep emptiness in what I was doing and how I was spending my time. And once I figured that out and realized one by one, all my values were violated, I now had information. And my grandmother used to say that a problem identified is a problem half solved. Most of the time we go around unhappy about things, but we really can't put the words to it. And that's what people enjoy about YouMap, is it gives them the language. It gives them the clarity to know this is what's been wrong all of these years. Now I understand why I've hated working in IT for 20 years, and I never understood that. So that process, once I went through that and made changes in my life, it was overnight. My joy was overnight restored. And I thought, I need to pivot from what I'm doing, and I need to help other people know this too. Because so many people, number one, are undervaluing what they have to offer, their unique contribution. And number two, people are living and dying with their gifts on the table and not making a difference in the world with them. And I felt very burdened by that. So that's sort of the why behind what I do.
Wow. It's such a good story, because I think a lot of people could identify with where you were, and I think that a lot of people might be in that position right now, and I know that even when we find the answers to one of those questions, we solve one of those problems, we're always changing. People are always changing. And have you found, since putting together YouMap, that do the values tend to stay the same with people, or do they change as people go through different points in their lives?
They do change. So the 4 pillars of career fit that I identified, I didn't mention that after I had this discovery, I started to interview people and take notes on people who are happy in their work and who are unhappy. And I started to lay out the patterns. And it came down to how you work, why you work, what you work on, and who you are. Those were the 4 things. The how, you want to work is really your priorities, and your strengths dictate your priorities. The why you work is your values, what's most important to you. The what you work on, that's the actual skills that you're doing day in and day out, like how you're spending that day. And the who you are is your personality, your motivators, your preferences, those all come from your personality. So it's really important to know these things, because you could leave a job where you are underutilized. And when you're underutilized, that means you're not using all of your preferred skills. That's a skill thing. Yeah. So when you're underutilized, you could jump from one place and go to another, but then all your values are violated. You're doing all the skills you enjoy, but now you have a manager who's violating your values, or a company culture that's violating your values, or the role itself. So it's really important to have clarity on these things, because otherwise you're just sort of like guessing and just leaping from place to place. And I think that's why people are afraid to career transition, change companies, change industries, go out on their own, because they're not armed with the information that will give them the confidence to know what they're doing and that they can do it.
So what's the number one piece of pushback that you get from people who maybe learn a little bit about YouMap and then they, for whatever reason, they don't want to learn more about themselves? Do you get any? No, not really.
I get pushback before, but not once they get into it. So there was a woman on LinkedIn who wrote to me, and my publisher had made YouMap free one day. And so she wrote me and she's like, well, I downloaded it, but I don't expect to really learn much, because I'm very self-aware. I've done a ton of self-exploration.
I know it all.
I know myself very well. I've spent a great deal of time. And I was like, well, that's okay. I hope that there's something of value in it for you. It's not self-discovery. If you've made it, if you're at the top of the mountain, all the power to you. But hopefully there's one nugget that you enjoy. It was free. It's not a big deal, right?
Yeah.
So she wrote me the next day and she said, I stayed up till 4 a.m. reading it. I couldn't put it down. And she said, I feel like I'm seeing myself in a new way. And I just had to smile, because I really admired that she was sort of able to eat the humble pie, so to speak, and say, this was really put together in a way. And I think the difference is I've done a lot of assessments as well. And, I'm a master trainer in Workplace Big Five. And I have, I don't say this to be boastful. I don't care about certifications, honestly. I think they're overrated. but I also am a DISC, the authorized partner, and I just don't use them anymore. So I always found those really interesting. Oh, I love when people tell me they're close to having their YouMap.
Anne says, and I love Anne so much. She is
in one of my books.
Well, that's what I understand. Like, I found out. So get this, talk about small world. I don't want to totally get derailed, but it's totally relevant. I was talking about having you come on and do the interview, and said, oh, I'm in one of her books. And actually it turned out that she had mentioned that she was she had shared about it in the group, in the private group that we have for the book club. And I was like, oh, I totally remember when you said that. And so it was just happenstance. You were destined to come and talk to Association Chat.
Yeah.
But
to finish answering your question, then, with the assessments, it's very interesting to learn things about you. But the issue was you're kind of looking at a one-legged stool when you just look at your strengths, or you just look at your values, or you just look at your preferred skills, or whatever you're looking at. And people are very nuanced and complex. And so people are left saying, that was interesting, but now what?
Right.
And that's what I set out to do, is give people the so what and the now what. Because if you think about floors of a building as an analogy, at the first floor, you have data. And that's what assessments provide. But then you need to turn that data into information. So what is the impact of this? What does this mean? What does this tell us? And then when you move from information, you have to move to the so what. Why does this matter? So if we have a shortfall in revenue, in third quarter, that means we won't be able to invest in our technology strategy for 2021, whatever the so what is. And then at the very top floor, that is the now what. So what are we going to do about this? What's the strategy? How are we going to remediate whatever? And so that's what a lot of the things are missing. At least they were for me when I was career coaching, is they were data. And I was pretty good at turning them into information for people, but then people were left with, so what, now what? And I thought, you know what? I need to figure this out. So I started using different things and patching it together so that I could get people what they needed. But it was confusing to have 7 reports from 4 different assessments and all of these things. So I thought, you know what? I can't find anything that gives me what I need. So I'm just going to go ahead and create it myself. So I don't say this as a sales pitch, because honestly, I really am just motivated for people to do the work. And if you can find that another way, that's great. But you are not objective about yourself, and you think you know things about yourself. You think you know what your limitations are, but we really don't know what those limitations are until we're tested. So you would think about something in your life, Kiki, where you did something and 5 years earlier, you would have said, there's no way I would have thought I could ever do that. But yet you did. So you have to be able to trust that you're resourceful enough to figure things out. And most of us just need some sort of a guide to point us in the right direction. And I don't care what the guide is. My goal is for people to just know what they do best that other people need most, so they can marry those things together and provide the most value with the gifts they've been given.
So talk to me a little bit about how you've applied, you put this together. This is how YouMap came to be. You discovered these things about yourself, and you're continuing to apply them. So talk to me a little bit about how your own discovery into your values and what drives you, how that has led you to some of your other projects, and what are you up to right now,
So I love the question, and I will segue by saying that I do drink my own Kool-Aid. So a lot of business owners sometimes end up doing a lot of things they hate. So I've taken my own YouMap and fashioned my role that I play in my business around my YouMap, and hired someone to do the day-to-day operations of my business, who loves administration, who loves project work. I hate project work and administration. And so I actually don't, people will say there's always things you have to do that you hate. And I'm like, I don't know that's true in your business. Like in your business, it's like, well, no, because I just YouMapped someone who had what I hated, and now she does it.
Yeah.
And so I really couldn't afford a person at the start. Like my very first assistant, I really couldn't afford it at first, right? But I thought, I'm going to do it anyway because it's important. But what happened was it freed me up to do things in my zone of genius, so that I actually increased business, and things were done well that I hated to do that normally I might drop the ball on. So that thinking I on paper couldn't afford an assistant actually generated the revenue that I needed to pay her, which was.
Can we just talk about, I love that term, my zone of genius. I mean, that is amazing. And I feel like if you're able to, one, identify you have a zone of genius,
Everyone does.
And know what that is. But then even your word choice there, I love framing it as your zone of genius, because you might feel motivated to get to work if you know it's work that you're good at or you enjoy doing, and it plays into your values. But how much cooler is it to do it if you know it's in your zone of genius? Like that's amazing.
And just to clarify, I'm not saying I am a genius. I don't want that to come.
I'll say it for you.
Yeah, no, that's not what that means. So you have your zone of incompetence. That's where and Gay Hendricks is the one who came up with this model, not me. But your zone of incompetence are the things you just should not be doing because you suck. So just let's stay away from that. Your zone of competence is things that you can do competently, but so can lots of other people. So you should not be doing them because there's not a good ROI there. Your zone of excellence is where most people park. They reach that level of expertise in what they're good at, and they stay there, but they actually get a little bored with it. And sometimes people will feel bad. They're like, oh my gosh, I thought I wanted to quit my job and do this or do that. but now after 2 years, I'm bored with this. Did I make a mistake? No, no, no. We are always evolving. So you go through these iterations. So when I started, I was executive coaching. Then I did career transition coaching. And then I started writing books. And then I started developing career profiles. And it's an evolution. It's not an identity crisis of, oh, executive coaching was a mistake or career coaching was a mistake. I'm building and growing. And once I feel like I've mastered something, I've moved on to continue to pursue the zone of excellence, which is now, or the zone of genius, which is now just not mastery, but it's where I am most gifted and where I have the most passion as well. So when you start to lose your passion for something, a big mistake experts make is, well, this is my expertise and it took me all these years to do it, so I just need to stay and keep doing this. Well, how can you take that expertise and package it differently? So maybe you did one-on-one coaching. Now maybe you go around and speak and do workshops, which is a different skill set. Or maybe you write books about it, or maybe you generate content about it, but you're still leveraging the expertise, but you're spending your time using different skill sets, disseminating that expertise. And that's what I challenge people to do. How can you use that expertise in a way that aligns with your most preferred skills?
Now, do you find that, so what's the hardest part of the journey for most people? Is it actually, landing on the application of oh, these are my values. I've done the UMAP and now I understand myself better, but I need to apply it? Or is it actually taking what they like, confirming what they already know, and then pushing themselves to find to raise the level, to raise the bar, and to find that zone of genius?
So I think it's been two things in my experience working with people: clarity and confidence. So some people have the clarity, but they don't have the confidence. Some people have no idea. They just feel lost in the woods, and that's okay. So they gain the clarity, but then they still don't have the confidence. I think when people have those two ingredients, the clarity and the confidence, then if they're not acting, it's that they don't have a plan. So they don't know how to action what they know they need to be doing. And that's when you might need to either do some research or hire somebody who knows how to help with strategic planning or whatever it is you need. That's why you need to always ask yourself the questions: what help do I need? Those 5 questions I mentioned earlier at the beginning. How can I help, and what help do I need? Because ultimately, if you don't have a plan, nothing is going to happen. So people have just good intentions, a wish that never becomes reality. So I just realized I didn't ask your question when you said, how did that lead to the other things? Well, interestingly, I was having a conversation with a friend who went through YouMap, and she had all of these aha moments about these things that she had about her that were really quite special, but she had been told as a child these were bad things. And she said to me, Kristin, you need to write children's books. And I just reeled back when she said it, and it just did not fall well on me. I'm a transparent person. So I would always tell people the truth. I had a reaction like, I'm a serious author. I don't write children.
Wow.
And that was a really arrogant reaction, but I'm very honest about things. So I was like, I'm a serious author. I write nonfiction, career and business books. I'm not writing children's books. I want to be taken seriously. And then I got to eat my humble pie. When I was going to write a children's book, I'm like, how hard is writing? I don't know, like 800 words. How hard could that be? And I realized I had to say big things in little words to people of 2 different audiences. I'm writing for the parents. You're writing for the adult. You're writing for the child. And I was just like, this is way harder than just writing what I know and speaking like I speak to adults. So I have the utmost respect for children's book authors.
Oh, yeah. It is so interesting, though, when we find those things that we really push back on, and we really, have that automatic reaction. And, occasionally I'll find my reactions to those types of things. And I'll think, why where did that start? Why am I reacting this way?
Mhm.
And I think that years ago, I went through a real depressed time, and it was just a really, really difficult couple of years. And I realized that I wasn't asking questions. I wasn't curious anymore.
Mm.
And I had made all of these assumptions. And let me tell you, life is really small and ugly and plain when you think you know everything that needs to be known, and you don't ask questions to find out how wrong you are all the time.
That is so true, Kiki. Every time I work with people, like I don't coach anymore, but when I talk to people, I can tell people who are going to stay stuck immediately because they have patterns. Now, I'm not saying they can't change those patterns, but they're stuck where they are and they're going to stay stuck unless they get curious, like you said. So I will say to someone, have you thought about trying this or doing this? And their response is, well, the problem is.
Red flag, because that, by this point, that probably means, they're immediately shutting that down, right?
Yeah. And so I had a woman who called me and she was really unhappy. And she said, I want to transition to IT. She said, but there's no jobs in IT. Well, in fact, IT has the lowest unemployment of any, industry. So that was incorrect, but that's a story she was telling herself. There are no jobs in IT. And she's like, and I can't, I'm thinking, why did you call a career transition coach if you already know you can't do it? It was the weirdest call I've ever had, I think. But she said, and I couldn't transition to IT. And I said, well, actually, I've helped probably about 12 people easily transition to IT. And I did it myself. I transitioned to IT. From like university executive MBA program management. Like that's a really weird transition. But I did that
one. Yeah.
Yeah. So I said to her that I don't see any issues with you being able to make this transition based on your background and all of that. And she was convinced it couldn't happen. And I feel like she just called me because she wanted me to confirm, yeah, you can't do that, and let her off the hook. Mm-hmm. But what I coach people to say is, instead of saying the problem is, or that won't work because, say, that's interesting. My gut reaction wants to say that isn't possible, but let's explore how that might be possible. Let's walk through that, what that might look like. And that opens you up to possibility. And so many times people don't actually think about the result they want. Like, what outcome do you want? So a perfect example is in an argument with a partner. Mm-hmm. Is the outcome you want from that discussion to go sleep on the couch and have a yell fest? Like, that probably wasn't the outcome. Yeah. But if you think about, well, no, the outcome is I want this, this, and this from this interaction. It's like, well, are the methods or the approaches or the strategy you're using going to lead to that, or do they lead to sleeping on the couch? So you have to think about, you have to have clarity about what is it that you even want. And it's okay if you don't know what you want. You don't have to know what it looks like, but you have to know your criteria. Mm-hmm. These are my deal makers. These are the things I must have. I don't know what my career should look like, but I know I need to have more autonomy. I know I need to have more flexibility in my schedule. I don't want to be commuting to work 2 hours every day. I'm really good at creating systems, so I want to do that. And I love to innovate. Like, what is your list of things? If you go through and create an ideal day of everything you've ever done and what you loved, even if you hated a job, you'll find something you liked. Even if you got to talk to customers all day, but you hated the work. Yeah. If you do a list of everything you like, that's a good start on what you want your day to look like.
And also very positive. I mean, it's a lot more fun to think about the things that you just enjoy in general versus I can't do this, I can't do that, because that can really just shut you down too.
And it's not harmless to do that, Kiki. When people start to think negative all the time, they actually rewire their brain for the negative. So neuroplasticity is a branch of neuroscience that researches how our brain changes over time. And people who have a growth or learner mindset, who practice mindfulness, who look for possibilities, who love to be in a learning mentality, can rewire their brain for things, even just the way they think. But you rewire your brain for good or for bad. So if you constantly play tracks of negativity to yourself, like, oh, I'm so fat and old looking, or whatever you're saying to yourself, we all, women especially, beat ourselves up about our appearance.
Yeah.
If you're doing that, that starts to become a rut. Like when you back out of your driveway and you keep going into the grass and you make a big rut, your thoughts will start falling into that rut. So it's really important to have that possibility mindset, that curiosity mindset, that learner mindset, because have you ever seen that movie Sliding Doors with Gwyneth Paltrow, where there's the two different lives that she ends up having? You are taking yourself down a path to a different life. It has serious consequences.
Yeah, and I feel like sometimes, I don't know, we have a lot of high achiever type people that are in the association chat community because they're all wanting to be at the forefront of what's happening. They want to connect with others and they want to move up in their lives or in their careers in some way. So I feel like many people have, by this point, maybe they've made a discovery or they've had an epiphany about something to do in their lives. But we all know that, the only constant is change. And so what a bummer it is when you think you've got things figured out and you're on the path, you're like, I've got it figured out. I know what to do. And then suddenly you realize this is good, but there's something not right. There's something wrong there. It's time to change, but I'm not sure how. So what do you have? How do you advise people who maybe it's not a huge dramatic thing, but maybe a general sense of ennui and they're concerned about where it's headed?
I think that when things happen that cause us to change focus or change, I think those are blessings. So I think our perspective is really important, because if things just kept going along swimmingly, you are actually losing skill as times change. Because if you're just going to keep taking the path of least resistance. So these outside forces that force us, that just jar us awake to like, oh, where am I? What am I doing? They kind of wake you up, even though they're unpleasant. They force a reevaluation, a reassessment, and possibly a redirection that probably wouldn't happen if we just kept coasting along. And so I love those shakeups, even though sometimes I don't like them in the moment, because you can look back historically and always find that you ended up in a better trajectory than where you were. I haven't met anyone who's like, oh, I wish that I hadn't got fired from that job that was making me miserable. Like, I've never heard anyone say that. I wish I was still there. They were really upset that they lost the job, even though they hated it.
Yeah.
Everyone always says that it was a blessing.
We are going through, my family and I, we're going through this big change because after 15 years of living in the same place, we're moving to a new state, new location, and it's very, very exciting. But I have a 12-year-old, almost 13, and she, very positive mindset, way more positive than I was at that age. But she was so concerned about changing schools, but more importantly, changing her dance studio where she had been rising through the ranks and she thought it was the best. And what if this new place, what if this new thing doesn't have X, is not as good as, and I think that through watching her, I could identify because, it's that, what if I make the leap and I don't like the direction I go in as much? Or what if I make the wrong choice, and that fear of loss, that fear of making the wrong move can really hinder us when we are worried that the future might not be as good as right now, even if we're not 100% happy where we are, right?
Yeah, well, I think that there's a mistake that things are permanent. If
Yeah.
your decision doesn't lead to your death, it can be changed again.
And I mean, like, right, we're always hoping. Yes, her new dance school did not lead to her death. She's very happy, but yeah, absolutely.
My friend, Kimberly, she's my best friend, and she lived here in Charlotte, and she decided she was going to move to California, and she moved to San Francisco. And I'll never forget, she said, what if I've made a mistake? And what if I shouldn't have moved out here? What if it doesn't work out? And my response was, move back.
Right. I mean, it's
in my guest room. Yeah. Done. And it's now 5 years later or 4 years later, and I can't get her to move back. I'm like,
you're like, well, I thought.
She's like, no, I'm good.
Like, please let me convince you. Maybe you were wrong. No, I wasn't. Oh my gosh, that's so funny. I really do think that it's so much a mindset thing, but it's also, it's also understanding ourselves. And I really love the way, and I have not done YouMap yet, but I've got to go and get on that as soon as we jump off of this, because I know Anne, who was watching earlier, that she was talking about doing it, and everybody was talking about, oh, we should all, go do YouMap. And I have to say that I've never done something where I've gotten to know myself better and wish that I hadn't, like, it's a good thing to find out more about yourself so that you just have more tools in your arsenal. You understand yourself so that you make better decisions.
One of my Facebook friends, she's a director at a pharma company, and she wrote me and she said, I'm doing YouMap with my team as a book club. And I thought that's really great, because then you have people who know you, who have the work context with you, and even if they don't know you in a work context, they know you professionally. It's not like you turn off your values and strengths in your personal life. They come with you everywhere you go. But it's nice to have people to be a sounding board and to have discussions, and then they can feed back examples to you if they know you. It's really a nice thing to do with other people.
I think so too. We'll have to talk about that after the show. Maybe that's something that we can do. Anne's got a head start, but we can catch everyone else up. So talk to me about how you're approaching this year, because we talked about the theme, but as someone who understands about neuroplasticity and who I feel like if you're the person that everyone goes to for answers, like, man, you probably are always putting yourself, like, are you always thinking, how am I taking my own medicine and applying this, and am I pushing myself enough?
Oh my goodness. Yes, I do drink my own Kool-Aid for sure. So it's really important to have friends that are mirrors, and they're honest in your life. And that could be like, my spouse is that for me. He is definitely an honest mirror. So you need different types of people in your life for different things. But if you don't have people who will tell you the truth, so I will say to my husband, if I am spending too much time on my cell phone in 2021, I need you to call me out. Yeah. If I'm not doing the thing. So I set goals at the end of every year. Now, first of all, when you don't reach a goal, you have to reevaluate. Do you even want that goal? Is it important to you? So you have to have belief in yourself that you can reach the goal. You have to have desire for the goal. If you're like, oh, I want to so when I had set a goal to lose 35 pounds, and that was in 2019, that I had set that goal. I didn't care. No, 2018. I didn't care about the goal, so I didn't reach the goal. Yeah. But when I thought about my values, my number one value was love and connection. And I thought, I'm going to be 50 this year.
Oh, wow. Oh my gosh. You look fantastic. Oh,
thank you.
You don't mind.
My youngest is 4. My oldest will be 24. So she'll be 5 at the end of June. So I'll have 5 through 24. Wow. And so my older 2, who will be 20 and 24 this year, have had a lot more time with me, obviously. And my daughter is going to be at my funeral at a much younger age, not to be morbid, but a much younger age, you know, if all goes out with regular age with everybody, but then my sons will be.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought to myself, it's very possible on the road I'm on, I had high blood pressure, I was obese, I needed to lose more than 35 pounds, so that was my goal. It's very likely I am not going to ever hold her children someday. It's possible at 50 now.
Right.
People are having kids in their mid-30s. It's not unusual. I could be dead by then. And I got real with myself. And I said to myself every day, will this choice I'm about to make help me reach my goal of holding Evelyn's children someday? I pictured her in the hospital crying, holding her baby with her husband, saying, I wish my mother could be here.
Wow.
That's what I pictured. And that gave me the desire to want this goal. And so when I would be at the potluck with the brownies and the cookies, and I would say, should I have the strawberries for dessert? Which one of these choices is going to help me hold Evelyn's children someday, if she chooses to have them and if she can? And that made decisions a lot easier because I connected my goal to my values and what was important. I didn't care about losing 35 pounds, and I ended up losing 40. But I didn't care about that because like, what is that? What are just losing some numbers? That doesn't matter to me.
What an excellent example. I mean, I really thank you for sharing that with us because, well, I mean, it's obviously a very personal story, but also that I think so many of us are looking for, why is it that I can't just do the thing that I say that I'm going to do, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that connection to ultimately, why is it that you want to be in better shape so that you can live longer, so that you can hold your granddaughter or grandson someday? It's like, oh, wow. I mean, that really drives home what you're trying to do in a much better way than just, oh yeah, you know, I want to lose 35 pounds or something.
Maybe the way you're approaching your goal is the issue. I can't stand exercising. I don't like exercising.
Yeah.
I actually run now, and I'm training for a 5K. I ran a 5K this morning, and I actually like it now, but I didn't like it when I first started, and I was a couch potato. But I'm that person that when I start exercising, I quit within 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not me saying, oh, I don't want to go, so I'm not going to go. I forget. I start working and like, oh, I never got to it. It didn't happen. Well, tomorrow. And then I forget and I forget and I forget. So now I have an accountability buddy that I have to send my sweaty picture to at the end of every exercise session.
Oh my gosh.
And my husband runs with me. Well, he hurt his leg, so now I'm running alone, but he runs with me 3 days a week, or 2 days a week he runs with me, or 3 days a week he runs with me. Yeah. So I have to put things in because I'm not a consistent person. That's why knowing yourself is important. My own YouMap tells me I have no executing strengths, so I will never go do. I like to sit and think. I like to read and write and sit in one place. And so if I'm going to get out and do things, I need to put things in place. You need to do things in a way that's going to work for your motivated skills. Mm-hmm. If you're an extrovert, you are not going to run on your treadmill in your living room. Who are you kidding? You will not do that. But if you get on a phone call and you get an accountability partner to talk to you on the phone while you walk on your treadmill or walk outside, a friend of mine has started hiking. And she talks on the phone to people while she does it because you have no concept of time passing when you're talking to someone. So you have to look at how are you wired, and don't do it how you see other people doing it, because it's not going to work for you to go to the gym if you're an introvert, because you'll find all the reasons in the world why you don't want to go and be in a room full of people.
Oh, I love this. I love this so much. I mean, it's so true. And I think that I've made some of those mistakes for sure in my life over and over again. And so I think that it's good to just, if you're in touch with who you are, if you're in touch with the type of person that you are, don't fool yourself, be honest, be very, very honest with yourself above anybody else, be honest with yourself. So that, because if you lie to yourself, you're going to lose to start, right? Oh.
Mm-hmm. Okay. My friend Lila that I mentioned, she co-authored You've Got Values, the second book in the children's series with me. And she said, like, sitting down and writing, she's very social. She loves connection. She's extroverted, and sitting and writing doesn't work for her. And I knew if we tried to pass a document back and forth, it wasn't going to work. So we recorded Zoom calls, and I love to write. So I would transcribe her ideas, and then we would get on the Zoom to talk through and make changes real time instead of me sending it to her saying, make these changes, because I knew and she knew she would procrastinate. Procrastination isn't laziness. It's avoidance. And we're avoiding it for a reason, because it burns us out. And we don't like feeling burned out. Yeah. So you have to stop thinking about, this is how people grow a business. This is how people do a podcast. This is how people do whatever the goal is, and what's going to work for how I'm wired. It affects every area of your life to know yourself. And self-awareness is actually, by research, the number one predictor of success in life. And success is defined by your own values, but reaching your goals, whatever those are.
So are you ready for the lightning round? Because there is something new that it's only, so Jeffrey Kufad he's a wonderful friend, wonderful facilitator. He was also one of my recent guests and got me on this whole kick of doing lightning round questions at the end. So
I love that. It's so fun.
Well, I hope you're up for it. If you're up for it, then I would like to journey into the lightning round. And this is, I've got 4 questions. We'll see how many we can get through quickly, but we will get started. Let me see. Is my bell here? My bell's over there. It was on holiday. So we'll start without the bell. An experience that really shaped who you are as a person and or professional.
I moved to a new city and I didn't know anyone. And I realized that I could handle a lot more than I'd given myself credit for, because that was a huge reboot of my life.
Oh, good. Oh, so it makes me want to dig into that even more. The next one, an example of how luck or timing has helped or hindered you.
So I auditioned for TEDx and I bombed it. And when I bombed that audition, I would have spent the entire summer had I made it. And it's a longer story of why I bombed it, so I won't get into that. But that summer, I ended up building YouMap instead.
Wow. Oh, I love that.
Which I wouldn't have had time to do.
Yeah. Yeah. And you totally would have been distracted during a time when it ended up being something that was pivotal in your life. That's beautiful.
I built the certification programs, and now we have coaches in 7 countries around the world.
Oh my gosh. That's such a great example. Okay. What was your original career aspiration or job?
Neuroscientist. My undergraduate degree is in neuroscience.
Oh, how perfect. Okay. And what are a few adjectives people who know you best might use to describe you?
They would say I am giving. That sounds so awful to say, but I'm just telling you what people say to me. They would say I'm giving. They would say I'm inspiring. They would say I'm thought-provoking. And they would say I'm innovative.
Oh, I love those. So those are my lightning round questions. You did a wonderful job. Normally I would ring the bell at this point and say that you made it through. Oh, ring, 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 ring. So what I want to ask right now is, if people want to find out more information about you, if they want to, I put the YouMap URL up at the bottom of the screen. But for anyone who wants to reach out, what's the best way for them to reach or find out more about you?
MyUMap.com is a great place to reach out to me, because we have a contact me page on there. But also you can connect with me on LinkedIn. It'll look like I can't accept connections, but I can. So, sometimes people will stop sending you connections once you hit the 30,000 on LinkedIn, but I still have connections available. So feel free to connect.
Do it. Okay. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate you taking the time, and I'm going to go and seriously, I want to follow up with you later and find out how we can, bring YouMap to the Association Chat Book Club, because I think that that's something that they would just love, I would love, and I know that we'd benefit from it.
Mm-hmm. And if anyone is interested in getting a copy of YouMap, the Kindle is reasonably priced at like $5, I think. So you can download the Kindle. It comes in hardcover and paperback and audiobook as well if you don't like the Kindle format. Well, so anywhere online books are sold.
What's the color of the dust jacket? Because I gotta tell you, I've got my whole library back here. I've got to figure out where I'm going to put it.
The color of it is actually, it's white.
So white?
It's white, but it has like red and yellow.
White books over here. I could put them right in there. Right. Perfect. Well, thank you so much for joining us. And I cannot tell you how much I appreciate it. Thank you, Kristin.
This was a pleasure. Thank you so much, Kiki. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week.
Oh, me too. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for watching. If you're listening to this later, I hope that you really got a lot out of the interview. Kristin is amazing. And when I said that I'm going to follow up with her afterwards, I'm telling you, it's the email I'm sending right after this to find out more about YouMap. I encourage you to go to myumap.com and find out more about your own YouMap. Take the YouMap, find out, get the book, do all the stuff. It's never a bad thing to find out more about yourself. And as always, keep asking questions to learn every day. As Joseph Campbell once said, the cave you fear to enter holds the treasure you seek. So have a great week, everyone.